I am boring. Normal. A typical mid-20s girl living in London. I'm not particularly outgoing or funny. I'm just me. I have people I like, people I'm not too fond of, and people I quite fancy. I've been called all sorts before. Bland, vanilla, unmemorable, but I like my life the way it is. And it's mine, so that's all that matters. Nothing remotely extraordinary has ever happened to me, and that's the way I hope to live out my life. Well, that was until a few months ago. The weather in the UK is generally predictable and moderate. Vanilla. Just the way I like it. We really aren't equipped for anything other than this. When it rains heavily or, God forbid, it snows, the country's travel systems come to a complete standstill and throw a tantrum like a hyperactive 2-year-old. As much as I, and every other Brit, whinges about the weather, I quite like it how it is. There are rules and structures which mean that you can usually plan for the day or week ahead. I guess the only exception is a thunderstorm. When I was a child, I used to be frightened of the light and the noise. A teacher once told me I had nothing to fear, and that he was more likely to get struck in the head and die. Which weirdly enough didn't ease my 6-year-old fearful imagination. I hadn't even realised humans could be hit by lightning. You hear about it on clickbait news articles on the internet, but I have always been skeptical about whether or not those stories are real. But believe me, they are. I was caught in a storm walking home from the tube station after a day of work. I was walking through a park and passing under a tree when it hit. I should be dead. I've got no idea if I am alive or if I am having an out-of-body experience. Hands, touch, hand to face. I can feel that. Hand in mouth. I can taste that. Why am I tasting my own hands? Logic kicking in. I am alive. I laugh out loud. I can hear the laughter. Feel it in my chest. I'm laughing out of relief and the sheer ridiculousness of the situation before panic sets in. I've just been hit by lightning. I should probably call an ambulance. Phone in pocket. Smoking. Melted. Screen won't turn on. Not working. Panic building. I look up and see a cyclist riding in my direction. I scream, wave my arms and try to call them over. They shout obscenities back. Something stupid idiot. How rude. I scream back, giving as good as I get when his back wheel comes clean off his bike. The metal frame grates along the pavement as the cyclist tries to regain control of the frame, not seeing what I can see. His feet are locked into the pedals with those specialist cycling shoes. He can't put his feet down to stop. Sparks are flying from the metal and the cyclist hits a bench and he flies into the air, falling headfirst onto the ground, rolling several times and ending up in a fountain. Horror-struck, I sprint over, desperate to see if he is okay. When I arrive, it is obvious he isn't. His body is contorted in abnormal ways and his hips are at a 90-degree angle to what they should be. His spine broken and twisted out of shape. He's head first in the water, surely dead from a snapped spine. Was this my fault? No. How could it have been? But a sinking feeling deep in my gut knew otherwise. The rest of the night passed in a blur of shapes and colours. Someone called an ambulance and the police. A paramedic thrusting a light into my eyes and asking endless, pointless questions I couldn't hear. Then I was in the hospital, being poked and prodded in a way I couldn't feel. Then I was on my way home in a taxi I don't remember calling. Then I was in bed, drifting, the warm embrace of sleep pulling me in. I awoke the next day around noon with the mother of all headaches. Hardly surprising, given yesterday's events. I wandered into my kitchen and put the kettle on. I turned on the TV, then went on a hunt for some painkillers. The news was on, and the headline was about a freak cycling accident. The victim had died. The victim. They hadn't even named him yet. Feeling overwhelmed, I decided to go for a walk to clear my head. The events of the last 24 hours were far too much for me to handle. I didn't want to talk about it with friends and family because that would make it seem more real. I just wanted to forget it all and have things go back to normal. Back to boring. Yeah, boring would be great right about now. I got to the park and began one of many loops that I intended to take that afternoon. There's nothing quite like feeling your feet pound in the ground to gather your thoughts and put everything into place. By the third loop, I could feel the tension leaving my shoulders. The last few hours were unfortunate, tragic, but ultimately over. I smiled and continued my walking therapy when I spotted an ex-boyfriend in the distance walking towards me. Great. Just what I need. I turned around and headed in the opposite direction, thoughts of our sour relationship plaguing me as I went. Guilty, harmless thoughts of what revenge would be most fitting for him if I ever got the chance. I giggled. It made me feel better. That's when I heard a scream. His scream. My heart stopped as I ran towards the sound. He was writhing on the floor in agony. People were over him trying to help, but by the time I got there, he was gone. Another mysterious death, only moments after I had wished harm upon them. I feel sick. Surely not. Surely I don't have the power to... No. That's impossible. Why are you even thinking about this? But what if I did? What if all I had to do was think something and it would come true? The perfect crime. Untraceable. Maybe boring isn't so great after all. Maybe vanilla isn't me anymore.